In the early hours of June 6, 1944, along the grey coast of Normandy, thousands of German soldiers stirred in their damp bunkers, unaware that they were about to face the largest invasion in history. The Atlantic Wall, Hitler's proud fortification, stretched for miles. Its concrete bunkers, mines, and artillery meant to repel any assault. For months, they had been told that this wall was unbreakable, that the Reich's defenses would throw any invader back into the sea. Yet, as dawn approached, faint vibrations underfoot signaled something beyond imagination. Out on the horizon, dark shapes began to take form. At first a blur, then a solid mass. The channel itself seemed to move. From Cherbourg to Caen, observers radioed reports of an armada like none ever seen. 6,939 Allied vessels, carrying men, tanks, and machines forged by a world that had outbuilt Germany tenfold. At strongpoint WN62, overlooking Omaha Beach, 19-year-old Heinrich Severloh adjusted the tripod of his MG-42, its steel cold in the morning air. Below, the sea was alive with movement, thousands of landing craft cutting through the surf. Then came the thunder. Allied naval guns opened fire, and the earth shook as if the gods themselves were at war. The sky flashed orange, the wind filled with dust and sand, and the carefully built bunkers of the Atlantic Wall trembled beneath the storm. Severloh's commander shouted orders through the chaos, but within minutes the telephone lines were gone. Communication with neighboring positions had been destroyed. Alone and surrounded by smoke, he watched the first wave of American soldiers spill into the surf. He pulled the trigger, and the MG-42 roared to life, spitting 1,200 rounds per minute. Men dropped, waves turned red, and still they came. For hours, the gun crews of WN62 fired until their barrels glowed, until their ammunition dwindled to belts carried by trembling hands. In other sectors, mortars fell silent as positions were overrun. The defenders fought as they were trained, efficiently, mechanically, but deep down, a sense of disbelief crept in. They had been told the enemy would be few. Instead, they faced a tide of steel, flesh, and fire. The Luftwaffe sent only 2 aircraft to contest the sky, 2 against over 14,000 Allied sorties. The 21st Panzer Division, ordered to counterattack, was paralyzed by confusion and Allied bombing. From the beaches to the hedgerows, the Wehrmacht found itself cut off, outnumbered, and overwhelmed. To the young men manning the Atlantic Wall, it was clear they were not fighting soldiers alone. They were fighting the full weight of an industrial empire. Each shell, each aircraft, each tank was the product of factories that never slept. Across the ocean, America's Ford Willow Run factory was producing 1 B-24 bomber every 63 minutes, while German industry struggled under constant bombardment. As the battle raged, the illusion of invincibility shattered. What had begun as faith in concrete and courage dissolved into chaos and retreat. Officers reported through shattered radios that units had ceased to exist. On Omaha alone, 8 major bunkers and 35 pillboxes were systematically destroyed by naval fire and demolition teams. The once proud Atlantic Wall crumbled, and the beaches that were meant to repel invaders became graveyards of iron and bone. Those who survived withdrew inland, where hedgerow fighting turned every field into a trap and every village into a tomb. Weeks later, the same soldiers who had fought at Omaha found themselves encircled in the Falaise pocket, caught in the Allied pincer that closed like a vice around 50,000 men. The smell of burning fuel and death hung over the countryside as German columns were obliterated from the air. For many, it was not just the collapse of an army, it was the end of belief. The Reich had promised that valor and discipline could overcome any foe, but the defenders now saw the truth with their own eyes. They were fighting a war of machines, not men. In his later years, Heinrich Severloh would recall that day not as a victory or a defeat, but as the moment he understood the futility of it all. D-Day was more than a military disaster, it was an awakening. From the bunkers of Normandy to the last shattered roads of France, German soldiers realized that no courage could stand against a world united by industry and relentless production. The Atlantic Wall had fallen, but something deeper had broken too. The faith that had bound millions to an impossible cause. June 6, 1944. Through their eyes was the day the myth of invincibility died, and the war, for all intents and purposes, was lost.